What's up, YouTube? We're a couple of cunts, we're in the countryside, we're talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So Guardians of the Galaxy is out now.
And we saw it yesterday.
It was pretty damn good, yeah. A lot of people have been hyping it. A lot of people have said it's the best Marvel movie yet. I do disagree. I don't think it was better than the Avengers or the first Iron Man. I think I need to see it again to weigh it properly against the Winter Soldier, but it was pretty fucking good.
The thing I enjoyed most about it was the tone of the film, because you can tell they weren't taking it quite as seriously. And the intro sequence, which I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, is just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a lot more tongue-in-cheek and the comedy was a lot more prevalent than the others, but there were quite a few surprises. Like, there really were a few moments that were very emotional.
Everybody in it did a really good job. I mean, Chris Pratt, who plays Star-Lord, or Peter Quill, I've only really seen very few bits of him. Like, the only thing I've seen a little bit of him in is Parks and Recreation. But in this,
and the Lego Movie.
Yeah, he's in that. Forgot about that. But in this, he is, he's pretty damn good, and he's got some good dancing moves on the guy. That's a strange little subplot that just keeps going through it. Him dancing all the time, and the soundtrack. The soundtrack is brilliant. They do stuff in this film that they could have done in the others.
They do stuff that you'd never expect. Like, walking into it, I had certain expectations. Like, I really didn't expect there to be sad moments, and there were quite a few. I really didn't expect Drax to be quite the standout character that he was, because when I heard that Dave Bautista was going to be in it, I was like, so you've got this big tentpole movie that, the acting is pretty important, and you've hired an ex-wrestler. That's an interesting choice. But he was really good, like the fact that he just doesn't get metaphors.
And Bradley Cooper's voice for Rocket Raccoon, I wasn't quite sure what he was going to go with, whether he was going to do his own voice or put something on. And that sort of like slightly sleazy voice he put on it was pretty good, actually. Yeah. I liked it.
And Vin Diesel impressed for being someone who could only say 3 words throughout the entire thing.
4.
Well, technically 4, yes, but
he did do all the motion capture and stuff as well.
Even though it was a fucking tree, you could kind of tell it was Vin Diesel as well. Like some of the facial expressions he made. Like there's one great moment where he just takes out a corridor full of books and then just turns and just sort of goes, Groot do well. If I had one complaint about the film, and it's a complaint I've had with a few Marvel movies, is that the villains were really underused.
There were quite a few people in that who were underused. I mean, Thanos was in there, and I know a little bit about it, and he was just sort of, they're bringing him in, which is good. But as we mentioned right after we saw it, the main villain isn't used that much. Karen Gillan, her character, Nebula, she's barely in it, and Benicio del Toro, the Collector. Now, from the end of 4-2, you thought he was going to be quite important in this, and from the trailer, we certainly thought he was going to be quite important. And he didn't really do a lot. Well,
you mentioned Thor: The Dark World is exactly the point, because Malekith is such an interesting villain in the comics, and he was played so well by Christopher Eccleston that there was so much potential there. Because like, he's got a great motivation, which they never went into in the film, where basically his entire world was destroyed and all he wants is for his people to resurface. So, I mean, he's not some cackling, maniacal villain, he just wants to do what's best for his people. They didn't even go into that. I felt that that Ronan had the exact same problem, because again, he's a fantastic character in the comics and actually like goes through a lot of character development and is kind of a hero these days, and Lee Pace did a great job. He was sort of theatrical and scenery chewing while still being quite believable. But yeah, we spent, what, all of 3 scenes just with the villains, and so he didn't really get any development. Like, Jeff Bridges was obviously excellent in the first Iron Man, and the Abomination in The Incredible Hulk was one of the best villains they've had. But since then, I feel like the only villain that's really got any decent screen time was Loki. Like, he got a lot of good development in Thor, and then again in the Avengers, but like, Vanko in Iron Man 2 was absolutely just, what? Justin Hammer stole the show. Then like, Captain America, the Red Skull, was brilliant. Hugo Weaving was fantastic in that role, but
I don't think he gives a fuck anymore, and he's not coming back.
No, he was basically like, there's only 2 films I've done in my career that I don't give a shit about. Captain America and Transformers. Fair enough. And then obviously, like, I for one think that what they did with the Mandarin in Iron Man 3 was actually really great.
I fucking loved it.
Like, so many people have gone, oh no, they've ruined one of the best villains, oh, it's an insult. But I think it was so brave to do that. It's like they did all the marketing with, like, Ben Kingsley playing the terrorist man. It's like, oh no, I'm Trevor Slattery. Oh.
I can't remember which film it is, but there's shorts on most of the DVDs. I think that's in with, is it in with the second Thor film?
It is, yeah.
And there's a bit where he's in prison, and he's still sort of like half the character, half himself, or half the actor in it. It's so funny the way he just like crosses between the two.
The shorts are really good. Like obviously they're doing the Peggy Carter series now, and that came from the short, which was real good. But yeah, All Hail the King, the one with Ben Kingsley, is just it's so fucking funny for a film that's like 8 minutes long. It made me laugh more than most comedies do in an hour and a half. The future of the MCU is it's unknown because they've announced now, I think they've got 9 films announced between sort of after Avengers Age of Ultron. Ant-Man's going to be the first one in Phase 3. We've got Captain America 3 after that, Doctor Strange. There's an unannounced movie to begin with in 2017, which is more or less confirmed to be Thor 3.
I was going to say they've probably got to do another one by that point.
Then Guardians 2. Then the rest of the slate is kind of open to interpretation. They keep saying they want to do another Hulk movie, so they may possibly do that. They've been talking about Black Panther for so long, it's probably about time to give him his own film. They keep saying they want to give a female her own Marvel movie, so they could do a Black Widow and Hawkeye film, they could do a Captain Marvel film. With them introducing Thanos, I mean, he was obviously in the Avengers post-credits, he had a little bit of a role in Guardians, they're building him up, so I would be very, very surprised if the Avengers 3 wasn't the Infinity Gauntlet. Get the Avengers, get the Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe throw a few other people in. They're doing the Netflix series with Daredevil, Luke Cage and Iron Fist and those guys. Bring them all in and have everyone going up against Thanos.
We've got to be very, very careful which characters they bring in at which stages, you know, to stop it being over or undersaturated. It must be a real like nightmare thinking, are we going to have, you know, Captain America in this film or not, you know, because it's a non-Captain America film. Like in the second Thor film, it was quite funny how they had him in for like 2 seconds, just as sort of like a, not necessarily joke, but it was just referencing the other stuff going on.
Well, the other thing they've got to consider, and like a lot of people criticise Kevin Feige, but he's got like a lot on his plate, is that you've got a plan for the next however many films and where the story's going to go. So you've got to think, like, now they're saying that, you know, they're not doing another Iron Man film. Robert Downey Jr. is contracted to appear in Avengers films up until Avengers 3, but after that he might not be around anymore. They're sort of banking on Doctor Strange to be their next big star, sort of the guy they're going to build it around. And what a fucking fantastic decision. Let me just go on a tangent here to talk about Doctor Strange for a minute.
He does love his Doctor Strange.
Because he's not like a big superhero. You think of Marvel, you think of Iron Man, Captain America, Spider-Man, Wolverine, whatever. Doctor Strange is pretty underrated because, like, most people deal with things in a certain way. They'll either punch the bad guy out, they'll shoot him with repulsor rays, they'll blast him with a hammer, throw them in jail, whatever. Doctor Strange just takes the most over-the-top way of dealing with things. In one of his earliest issues, he has to deal with the haunted house. So most people would call in an exorcist or whatever, or, you know, he just banishes the house from existence, the whole house. Or like in another one, he gets stuck on an alien planet, and so to get home, he just blows up the planet and flies back to Earth. Like another arc where he goes back in time and Benjamin Franklin is hitting on his girlfriend, so he just erases Benjamin Franklin from time.
I can imagine that has a few repercussions. Like, I don't know, if I was erased from time, I don't think, you know, there's going to be that many things. Benjamin Franklin, I think the world might notice.
It's fine, because it wasn't actually Benjamin Franklin, it was a dick sorcerer in disguise.
Oh, okay.
But that's the kind of guy Doctor Strange is, so I think he's a very good choice to sort of build the franchise around. But they have had to plan it, obviously, because, like, if Iron Man's going to disappear after the Avengers 3, I imagine that Thor is probably going to nip off after that as well. Cap might stick around for a bit. Hulk's probably going to go off and do his own thing. So they're going to have to bring in a whole new generation of Avengers. So they've got Iron Fist, they've got Luke Cage, they're bringing in Ant-Man's coming into it, Doctor Strange. They're probably bringing in a few other guys from the new Avengers, like Hawkeye will probably stick around. They're bringing the Vision in with Age of Ultron, so that's fine.
I really want to see Gambit have some more stuff. Drinking poker player.
Yeah.
He's my favourite superhero.
Well, X-Men's owned by another studio, so you're going to have to rely on the shit X-Men franchise for that. They've just cast Channing Tatum as Gambit, so good luck with ever seeing a decent Gambit on screen. After the Avengers at the end of Phase 1, that had been so successful, and it's easy to sort of go now, yeah, obviously it was amazing, but it was such a risk for Marvel at the time, because like, the first film in the thing was Iron Man, and obviously he's huge now, and Robert Downey Jr. is the best paid actor in Hollywood, but no one knew about Iron Man before 2008. He was basically an unknown quantity, so they took a massive risk going, yeah, we're going to make a multi-million-dollar Iron Man movie and hope it goes well. Again, the Avengers, like, no one had ever done that before.
No.
Obviously now it's a massive thing, it's been so successful, DC are going, yeah, we're totally going to do a Justice League that's not going to be shit. And like, Sony only own one franchise, Spider-Man, and yet they're trying to make a franchise out of it. We're going to do a Venom film, we're going to do a Sinister Six film, and we're going to make a universe just around Spider-Man. You've got the universe there. It's Spider-Man, you don't need to do any more work.
I think almost like one of the problems they might have, because they know these films have got to this stage now, they could almost get complacent.
Yeah, so Phase 3 is the thing, and I mean, there's obviously been a lot around Ant-Man recently where like Edgar Wright has dropped out of the project, and that was a huge controversy. They couldn't lock down a director, then they eventually got Peyton Reed, whose best hits so far have been Yes Man, and I think he directed that Bring It On cheerleader film, and Patrick Wilson has then just dropped out as well, so they've basically lost half of their cast.
I would have liked to have seen what Edgar Wright would do, because I know he's a big fan of his comic books and stuff, and I think he would have done a really interesting... I don't even know anything about Ant-Man, but I would have liked to have seen a film in the Marvel Universe done by him, not necessarily sort of like a Hot Fuzz style thing, but something with his, you know, trademark stamp on it.
They're still using his script, and they said that they are still going to direct it in a way that's very Edgar Wright, so... But it's just, yeah... Ant-Man to start with is not a franchise that I'm particularly interested in. Like, the Wasp is one of my favourite characters, but apparently she's not even going to be in the film. So they've taken away my one motivation to want to see it. I'm obviously still going to go and see every film they release, unless they release a Howard the Duck film. Well, we've been a couple of cunts in the countryside. If you enjoyed this episode, I am Groot. Check us out on Facebook, and I am Groot. If you didn't enjoy this episode, I am Groot. We will be filming our 50th special in about 3 weeks. You have still got time to send some submissions in by Facebook, Twitter, or I am Groot. So we'll see you then.
And remember, we are Groot.